gang, it's Jim.
And Chrissy.
Jacobus with Your Marriage Matters, podcast number 146. And babe, I'm kind of excited about what we're talking about today.
I am too.
Yeah, I mean, last week we talked about 5 warning signs or red flags, early warning signs to perhaps some difficulty down the road. And this week we're going to talk about 3 ways that you can kind of deal with those.
Right.
We always want to make sure we give you something to deal with. And babe, I read a quote here today that I thought was so perfect. And gang, check yourself on this. We're going to check ourselves on this. But it says, you're not likely to protect your marriage if you don't believe there's any danger. And babe, anybody that's out there listening to the podcast probably doesn't feel that way, but it's so easy to get complacent sometimes and feel like we're good, I'm good, everything's fine. Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, I think this requires constant vigilance.
Right. And as we said last week, a lot of times I hear couples say they took their eye off the ball. They didn't make their marriage a priority. They took their spouse for granted. And they just didn't appreciate all the good things that were going on in their life because they were focusing on what's next.
Yeah.
Or also just being so busy. So I think there's a lot of people who can resonate with that.
And that's hard not to do sometimes.
Exactly.
It's so easy to get wrapped up. And again, one of the things you guys know is that we believe your marriage matters. We want to give you all the ways we possibly can to build a more vibrant, healthy marriage, protect your marriage, and not just exist or make it, but to literally to have everything you dreamed of when you said I do. And so today we're going to talk about 3 ways that we can invest in our marriage. And I'll talk about being a student. So why don't you're going to grab number 1 here?
Right. Is I recently had a milestone birthday. And with that,
you don't tell me which one it is.
No. With that, I came to the realization that it was time to make myself a priority. Not taking away from anything related to marriage, but things that I had just said, oh, I'll wait, I'll do that later, with regards to physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, even financial health, I had kind of let be a little bit on the back burner. And then I thought to myself, if not now, when?
Right.
And oftentimes with my clients, we'll do an exercise that's called day 1, because I fell into that same trap of saying one day I'm going to be serious about, doing the exercise I need to do. One day I'm going to be serious about making my physical health a priority. And I don't think focusing on yourself, the individual within the marriage, takes away from the marriage. It actually strengthens it.
Yeah.
And being willing to invest in yourself in all those categories I just named, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, all of that strengthens the team, because as the individual gets stronger, so does the marriage. Right. So I started looking at how we were both eating, but especially myself, the exercise. It was hard to do some of the exercises I was used to doing because of the knee pain.
Yeah.
But it has to be something that you make a priority. You hear all the time, I don't have time. Everybody has the same 24 hours. It's what you do with the time. And if you think about making yourself a priority, then the time figures itself out.
Well, I mean,
it's not without challenges. I've been doing a lot of exercises late in the day. So.
Well, but I mean, you and I both know, and certainly we hope everybody knows out there, it's kind of like that old oil company commercial. You can pay me now or pay me later. You can either invest in your health now, or you can invest in being unhealthy later on and try to take care of it then. Now is far better time.
Right.
But you use the term a lot of becoming the best version of yourself. When you think about becoming the best version of yourself, or anybody out there that's listening, what do you feel like are the key things? I mean, you're talking about physical, but what do you think are the key things that somebody needs to work on to become the best version of themselves?
Well, get to know yourself.
Yeah,
obviously start with knowing what matters to you, your values, your beliefs, and in some ways to be willing to go out on a limb, get out of your comfort zone. Oftentimes I'll have clients who are highly anxious and they live in a sphere of fear and avoidance of that, which makes them anxious. And there's a whole lot to be said about that. But when we really try and get to know ourselves, take care of ourselves, make ourselves and self-care a priority, then I think a lot of that becoming the best version of yourself is a byproduct. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, no, I agree with that. One of the things I think I see a lot, and again, guys, I do a lot of coaching and everything, is really working with clients on self-awareness.
Exactly.
Okay, why am I doing the things I do? What's in my background that causes that? How can I be aware of negative habits and get out of them? Just a lot of just being honest with ourselves. I think that's one of the challenges we have is, the most difficult client I run into is one that keeps kidding themselves that they're doing the right thing, and then all of a sudden, boom, the world falls in on them, and they go, "Well, I didn't see that coming." You're gonna go, "What do you mean you didn't see it coming? You're standing on a railroad track. What do you think comes down a railroad track?" And so I think a lot of times getting people to be willing to be transparent with themselves and open and honest, and understanding we're all broken. We're all messed up in some way. But somehow I think some people feel like if they have to admit to any kind of a fault, that it's a bigger threat to them than it may be to other people. Do you see that sometimes?
Well, I have couples all the time or clients who say, I don't know what the best version of myself looks like. And
Wow.
kind of to that point, I'll go, it's always a journey.
Sure.
It's not the destination. So how do you know when you're the best version of yourself? Yeah. When you're be able to look in the mirror and say, given all that I have, an awareness of my strengths and an awareness of my deficiencies, and look at it and say, I still love and care about myself. And I think that's when you really can focus on being the best version of yourself.
Well, I think the cool thing about marriage and where we all want to be, where we like to be is, you know me, you know what I'm good at, you know what I'm not so good at. I know you. I know what you're good at. I know what you're not so good at.
I don't do math.
You don't math.
I don't math.
We've just made math into a verb. Like, I don't adult very well. Well, we just don't. Chrissy doesn't math very well.
No, not my forte.
But here's the deal, though, is that's the cool thing about marriage is between the two of us, we're both aware of that. Okay, we try to help each other where we can. At the same time, neither one of us dislikes or doesn't love the other one because we're human. We actually celebrate the fact that we can be transparent with each other. And so I think that leads us to the second student that we want to be. The first one is to be a student yourself, but the second is to be a student of your spouse, or your partner. And one of the things that I think is really important in this thing we call marriage is I really want to know you. All right. I don't want to just exist with you and one day go, I had no idea that this was going on, or had no idea that you felt that way. Not that we don't change, but just to give you an idea, gang, we've done several podcasts on bucket lists. All right. I want to know what's on your bucket list. I want to know why that's important to you. I want to know what it is about that excites you. Even if I don't necessarily want to do it myself, I want to know what excites you about it so I can support you in that. Being a student of Christy's relational needs, I know what her relational needs are. And not only do I know what they are, but I let her define how those relational needs get demonstrated. In other words, what can I do on a day-to-day basis to make you feel loved? Talk about personality styles, talk about love languages. There is so much to know about this gal right here, and so much to know about me as well, that I constantly want to know what's going on with you, and just try to keep up with the changes that take place in a human being's life, the organic things that are taking place, like you reaching a milestone birthday, and this commitment you've made to get healthier, and I'm watching you do it and encourage you. There's all these things are going on, our folks, our kids, our grandkids, all these things. I want to be a student of you, and I want to know you. I want to know what scares you. I want to know what makes you happy. I want to know what makes you feel loved. I want to know all those things. But more than anything, I want you to know that I love you regardless of who you are.
And I think one of the things I'm kind of struggling with when I'm having conversations with people is I think it's important that people go on date nights. I think it's important that they spend time, reinvesting in their marriage and everything. But I do want to sometimes rethink what a date night looks like.
Yeah.
The other night, we just sat outside and looked at the moon.
It wasn't much better than that, though.
Yeah, it was amazing. And I think sometimes we just need to make sure that we're carving out time for a relationship. It's not defined. Date night's not necessarily defined by what you're doing,
Yeah.
but like you said, maybe even asking questions about
Yeah.
your partner and what they're experiencing as they're looking at nature or any number of things. The other thing is, it's kind of a thing about social media, you know, and how much time do I dedicate to that and different things. So
Yeah.
I think, but on social media, reason I brought that up is sometimes there's these great questions you can ask. And there's been a lot of times when I've asked you a question to see if you knew me, and your question answer about me was better than what I would have answered. So I think
I know you better than you know yourself.
I think sometimes we lose sight of the fact that another person can really know us and be there for us when we're struggling, to say, no, I know you, and you'll get through this stressful time or this difficult challenge because this is what you're made of.
Well, the first thing, thank you for that. That's the highest compliment I could have, is that you would ask me a question, I would respond back with something. You go, oh, I hadn't thought about that one. You're right. You know, or we talk about, we have fun conversation. What's our favorite, you know, concerts and things like that. And it's fun to go, oh, I forgot about that one. So, but just to clarify, first thing is, we weren't just sitting outside staring at the moon. It was the lunar eclipse. And we were literally sitting in the middle of the road here at the park. Now, the road's not very active in the middle of the night, or, you know, 11 o'clock or whatever. And oh, by the way, if you do want a list of questions you can ask each other, I know a really good book.
Yes.
52 Great Conversations to help build a more vibrant, healthy marriage. Our book, I'll put a link to it in the show notes of this. But, you know, sometimes you can just sit down with something like that and have a conversation. And gang, I guarantee you, if we sat down and did any of those conversations, Christy would bring up something today that I might not even know. And I consider that part of this deal. I want to become a student of Christy. I want to know everything I can about her, but understand that that's an ongoing, organic process, because she is a vibrant, healthy, changing, growing human being. And babe, I think that's one of the things that kicks in here, is we got to be growth oriented.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. I think that's the common theme through learning about yourself, learning about your spouse, learning about.
And the third one is becoming a student of marriage. The marriage entity itself, you guys know we talk about Team Jacobus. Now, it has one team member in Christy, another team member in me, and we want to know each other and know ourselves. But even then, knowing all of that, marriage is an institution. It's an ongoing process. It's so many different things. It's like a book that's been partly read, but yet to still be read. It's like a book that's been partly written, but yet to still be written. When you think about student of marriage, I mean, there's the things we talk about all the time: communication, conflict resolution. I believe that if we can't kind of master those two fundamental skills, it's going to be hard to go much further with all of the other things. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I was just thinking there are opportunities for you to learn. If you're struggling with communication, I don't think at any time in history had there been more access to great information. And I was just thinking, because I think on a daily basis, we get like articles from great resources, great experts. I get Psychology Today, and the just opportunities to learn and different things. So if you're struggling with communication, if you're struggling with conflict, you know, there's resources available in all different kinds of ways so you can get the education.
Right.
A lot of times you're struggling with conflict resolution and communication because there's, you know, personality or interpersonal dynamic issues going on that need
history.
Need some work. So I think from a standpoint of becoming a student of marriage, just, you know, what is it that you could do individually or together to improve your relationship is something that you should make as a goal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just the quote we used when we kicked this thing off, you are not likely to protect your marriage if you don't believe there's any danger, came from a newsletter that I get from Rick Reynolds at the Fair Recovery Center. And there are 3 great articles in there about how we become vulnerable to affairs. And I just love reading their stuff, because a lot of it, they're aiming now at not just affair recovery, but they're aiming at protecting, you know, preventing affairs and things like that. So I just think there's a lot of good stuff in there.
One of the great articles I got today was from the Harvard Business Review. Who would think that a business journal would be interested in talking about relationships?
Yep.
But it had great stuff in there about, how to be more connected. And the word connected, I think, is important because it's the cornerstone of a lot of times relationships.
Yeah.
So, becoming a student of marriage can look, different. It can be like listening to this podcast. Kudos to you for doing that, because
we're glad you're here, or else it'd be a total waste of time.
That's true. It just shows that you have, as the author of Think Again said, it means you have the humility,
right?
Confidential humility, or confidence in humility, to say, I don't know everything. I want to ask questions. I want to get more information. Mm-hmm. Same thing is true as if you read articles or books or do anything to invest in the knowledge of that.
Hang out with people that know stuff. We had dinner or had lunch with Matt and Julie Barnhill here just a week or so ago, and just sitting around talking to them, asking Matt questions, asking Julie questions. Hanging out with bright people is not a bad thing to do. So, babe, anything else or anything foundational you think is important for anybody out there that feels, okay, I want to become a student of myself, I want to become a student of my spouse, I want to become a student of marriage? Anything that you would encourage them to do right now, today?
The take action. Yeah, there we go. The take action item that I think is so important is coming to the realization that time is of the essence.
Yes.
It's not something that you want to put off for very much longer. Do something today. If it's just something little, even if it's something that just says, today I'm going to do this. I might not, book a trip to Europe, but I'm going to actually do this to take better care of myself. Right. Make myself a priority. I oftentimes think that we should be partially sacrificial in that we're doing for others, but we still need that ability to do self-care. So back to your question, which you kind of deviated from, is that if there was one action item I would say to do today, is find one thing that you do that's an investment in yourself and in your marriage, and do it.
Yeah.
Make that a goal. Just one thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna be a little self-serving here, but I believe that what we offer is valuable. So I'm going to encourage you to subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, go to our Facebook group, Your Marriage Matters, and join us there. Share your ideas with us. So I'm going to encourage you to take those actions. Obviously, you're here already, but make that a little bit more of a formal relationship so we can stay in contact with you. But, babe, of all the things that we do, there's so many good stuff there. I'm going to encourage you to go to our podcast on relational needs, download that relational needs survey, take that, have your spouse take that, and learn what makes your spouse feel loved, and learn the lesson that it's probably not what makes you feel loved. Because I think that's where we really get sideways sometimes is, well, these are the things that makes me feel loved, so that must make Christy feel loved. Nope. Not even close.
Not necessarily.
And so it's like I'm speaking Spanish and she speaks German or something like that, and it's not even coming across well. As a matter of fact, I'm going to say one more thing that I really encourage is prayer. I mean, we pray with each other every morning, unless I get out of bed at some ungodly hour and don't want to wake Christy up. But my prayer every morning is, give me ways to make Christy feel loved today. And I know the things that make her feel loved, and I want to do stuff like that. And so that's, to me, is one of the things I would encourage you to do. I'll put a link in the show notes back to that podcast. So if you want to go there, this will be yourmarriagematters.com/146. And you'll be able to find all the notes from this particular deal, a link to buy the book if you want to, a link to to our Facebook group, and I'll put a link in there to that podcast. So anything else you can think of?
I just think I want people to feel some sense of urgency about this. Because the one thing that I think I feel strongly about is that sometimes we'll say, I'll get to that, or I'll get around to that. Yeah. And to be in the present and make the present really matter, I think is something that I want people to feel this sense of urgency, is that, you know, we sometimes take tomorrow for granted, and that can be a mistake.
Well, I'm going to go back to the way we started the podcast. You're not likely to protect your marriage if you don't feel like there's any danger. Gang, there's danger everywhere, and there's danger in believing there's no danger whatsoever. Mindful, intentional student of yourself, student of your spouse, and student of marriage. And at the end of the day, your marriage matters. It matters to us. All right. It matters to you, to your community, your family, everybody around you. And we, like I said, we want to help you to build a more vibrant, healthy marriage so that you can experience everything you said when you said, I did everything you hoped for. That's what we want for you. So thanks for joining us. Appreciate it, babe. Thank you again, as always. I love you. I adore you. Appreciate you doing the podcast with me. Guys, have a great week. Take care.